And gentlemen, I hope you're doing well. We have another expert panel, which I'm really looking forward to. And again, we're on that subject of XR and AI. We've had an afternoon of some really interesting conversation. It's definitely the way the future's going. I don't need to tell you that. I'm going to invite Jason, who's head of global XR commercialization at Lenovo, up to the stage, and he's going to introduce everybody else. Just want to say, woo, woo. I like it. Can't come to the US without a whoop whoop somewhere. I've now finished for the day, so you'll be the people from ABLE or XR who should have been there will finish off the day. So I just want to thank you, everybody, for your attention. Have a great rest of your conference. I'm around tomorrow morning, and I'm going to leave you in Jason's capable hands. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. Cheers.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Guys, come on up. Instead of giving introduction to everybody here, I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. We have a very big group here. So our biggest challenge is probably going to be around time, making sure that we can address some of the questions that we have prepared. Within the context of that, I'm going to keep everybody to the core of the question, but I want everyone to be able to interact and have conversations there within. If we get to 1 or 2 questions or 10 questions, it's going to involve an amazing conversation. I've had the opportunity to speak to all of these gentlemen in advance of this conference, and they are all brilliant. You're in for a real special conversation here because every single one of them is an expert in their area, and they are talking about the hardest and most difficult things to answer within the space around AI and XR. They are practically working in this. It's not theoretical for them. It is every day trying to solve these problems. And there is no definitive answer. We don't have a clear definition of this space of where it's going. We know the shape, and if we've been around in this space for as long as some of these folks have, they know the direction this is going, but there's no correct, direct one answer. So before I jump in, my name is Jason McGuigan, head of commercialization in XR for Lenovo. I've been at this conference at least 4 or 5 times now. I've been in the space for over a dozen years. I've been talking about the convergence of AI and XR for at least 4 or 5 now. It is a very near and dear space to me. I'm usually giving talks around it. This year I said I didn't want to actually have any slides to present, so it makes it much easier to facilitate a panel. But I couldn't imagine a better group to be doing that alongside. So without further ado, let's jump in. And I'm going to start here with Ryan.
All right, thanks, Jason. Hi, everybody. I'm Ryan Johnston. I'm a principal engineer with Delta Airlines in our maintenance space, where we meet basically tech ops needs, all the way from immersive training to augmented damage repair and assessment to remote assistance for our field workers out in the field.
Amazing. And Josh.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Josh DeStefano. I work at DPR Construction. We're a fairly large commercial general contractor. We do all kinds of different projects, but my role is one of a few innovation leaders. My background, actually, before getting into innovation, was in virtual design and construction, so that's kind of where getting into augmented reality and different emerging tech sort of started. But nowadays, I focus on the early stages of our tech adoption, looking at discovery and evaluation, getting into proof of concept, and then how we move that on to the next stages beyond that. So we're looking at all kinds of different technology from AI, robotics, AR, a whole bunch of different stuff. And so there's about 10 or 11 of us that do different things on our innovation ventures team. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Josh. Doug.
Hi, everybody. My name is Doug Gorr. I am the Enterprise Innovation Architect for Tech at Lilly. And if you didn't know, Lilly is a 150-year-old medicines company with a rich history of just thriving through these major technological changes. Today, we're leveraging AI and XR, much more so on the AI side throughout our value stream. So think drug discovery, medicines development, clinical trials, manufacturing, and commercialization. It's a very exciting time to be in this space and in emerging technologies in general, and especially at Lilly with the how our leaders are kind of leading into innovation and see the future of how this is going to change the way that we operate and how we see ourselves going forward.
Great. On to Kenney, number 1 on top 5 beards in this panel here. So.
Top 5.
Yeah. Well, you should have seen it during COVID. You know, it was just like down here.
Still rocking it. Love it. There's only 6 of us.
My wife's like, hey, you can come down from the mountain. So, yeah, I'm Kenney Crooks. I'm an NG Fellow for Northrop Grumman. We're a defense contractor bringing a lot of capabilities like the B-2 bomber. We've just seen in recent newspaper. And also Sentinel and James Webb, the telescope that's a million miles out there. My focus areas are, as I'm the Fellow for Reliability, Maintainability, and also Model-Based Sustainment. I'm the Sector Functional Lead for our Aeronautics Sector under our Chief Information Data Office to push forward product support. How do we support Northrop Grumman workforce, and also the warfighter for a lot of our complex systems that we put out there in the field.
Amazing. And little anecdote, when I talked to Kenney, I realized that one of my earliest personal memories was actually going to and doing the tour of the Northrop Grumman facility on Long Island, where I grew up. And the company is always on the cutting edge of these things. But very interesting, a lot of people coming from the aviation sector within this panel here from different angles. Rajat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Rajat Lokesh, and I'm a senior XR developer at SLB, formerly known as Schlumberger. We are an energy technology company, and I work at one of our innovation centers. So I've worked on a whole bunch of XR prototypes over the last few years, but recently I've been focusing more on augmented reality instructions for manufacturing and assembly processes, and I'm also researching how Gen AI can be used to enhance the software development process in general.
Thank you. And Jeffrey.
I'm Jeffrey Berthiaume. I work for Southwest Airlines. I'm on the innovation team. We're tasked with taking problems throughout the entire organization, any sort of thing that a different group might be dealing with, that they think technology could solve some sort of problem. We'll build a prototype or proof of concept, test it out, see if it works for their needs, and then they go on and turn it into something real. And so with that, we play with a lot of AI things, a lot of machine learning, a lot of XR, a lot of digital signage, just all sorts of technology across the board.
Amazing. So as you can see, a lot of experience here, practical experience, actually working in this space right now. And I think as everyone recognizes within this room, within this panel, we are on the precipice of an incredibly innovative time within our world. Everything we're doing right now is involving artificial intelligence. And what we know as a society is as we implement these technologies, they become closer and closer to ourselves. We look for ways for them to maximize the way we work, maximize our lives. And the way that we do that is by creating technologies that allow us to bring that closer and closer to how we interact, to create this seamless interaction. And what better way to do that than XR devices? And it does take a little bit of modification of where we are within the space and taking it away from the Beat Saber and the basic XR trainings of the world and start implementing these tools that fit into a glasses form factor, fit into our ears, on our eyes, and allow us to increase and enhance our senses and allow us to just work more seamlessly. So there's no doubt within this space that this is all coming. But how do we get from where we see the vision going to from where we are right now? So that's the first question to jump into, and I'm going to give it over to you, Ryan, is within organizations, we know that XR and AI are incredibly powerful, but when we start doing this, you always start with that proof of concept. You know, what's the idea that you're trying to achieve? What's the use case you're trying to achieve? But so many of these things, almost everything we work on, stops right there. So what do you do to A, stay encouraged within that space, and B, to try and convince leadership within your organization to proceed past that purgatory?
Yeah, and I think it's about building out a technology pipeline or a development pipeline with your vendor or your provider. I think it's reminding me of a use case that we had in engine assembly. So the folks that are tearing down and putting back together these aircraft engines, it's a very complex, assembly and very complex instructions that all has to be done a particular way. And if I take to them, say, an Apple Vision Pro with the model of the engine that they work on every day, the folks will like that. But what I've seen repeatedly be kind of the quick follow-on is, well, can I do automated part identification and augmented workflow built into this? So I can see my model, I can get familiarized with it in a classroom, that's great. But I want to say, now that I have this part, what do I do with it? And then what do I do next? And so they're kind of naturally building out a technology pipeline for us. And now it's on us to sell their vision, and execute on that.
So anyone else in the panel, and I appreciate that perspective, because I do think everybody that puts on a device within this space automatically gets hit with the what ifs, right? They say, oh, this is great, but what if I can do this? So how do you actually get them to not only allow for the people that are using it to say the what ifs, but how do you get them to your organizations to actually invest in it, to allow you to continue moving that?
Say, a lot of it is your innovation pipeline, making sure your entire organization understands it and is bought into the process. But the biggest thing that I've seen is, in order to get over that hump, just build it with them. Don't say, I'm going to take requirements, or I'm going to understand your problem, I'm going to go away, and I'm going to come back with this awesome technology solution. If you get people who are going to experience the technology, who are going to pay for the technology, to be part of the process of coming from idea into reality, then everybody is bought in along the way, and everyone is part of that journey with you. And I think that leads to much more successful implementations and how you get from pilot to scale.
Yeah, that was one of the things that I was going to cite is we do that by partnering with other work groups. So my work group or department is only really responsible for the earlier section of discovery, proof of concept, trying to sort of set up for the next step. And that's a big thing, is finding that next work group that is going to own that for the enterprise. The other thing I'll say, though, is that you can't be afraid of that step. We end up doing a lot of different proof of concepts, and we've just gotten a little bit more comfortable with that sort of purgatory. And I've pushed for us to do one more thing, which is sort of set that up where it's not a bad thing. It still makes that tool accessible to our projects in this case. So our projects are vastly different than a lot of the other panelists, but sometimes we still want teams to be able to use something, but it may not be ready for everybody. Or maybe the enterprise or the business isn't ready for everybody to have it, but there's a handful of folks. So I need to be able to put that into sort of what I call putting on the shelf, like make it accessible. And that could be a different contract style, right? Maybe it's not an enterprise full-blown contract that everybody has access to it, but maybe we set up the terms and conditions and rates and sort of get a good relationship with that vendor. That starts with partnering, not just with the work group, but also with the vendor. The other thing that we did was we sort of stretched out our process. We recognized that we were getting bigger, and we couldn't really go from POC to enterprise. That didn't make any sense anymore. So we actually we used to call it pilot, now we call it POC, and we sort of split up what we used to call like an early pilot and a late pilot, and that's really where we start to get that next department that needs to own it involved, right? So it's not being afraid of that POC purgatory, it's having a good framework, and it's also partnering with who might own it later on.
So almost creating the POC as part of the goal, right? Basically, that's not the thing to jump off from, that's actually the destination at times.
Yeah, I think a lot of times we think of, oh, I need this POC to be successful. And to me, it's if we're learning that we don't like that product or it's not good, that's still a success. We've still learned something. We either win or we learn, right? There's no real failure in innovation, in our opinion. So, yeah.
Has anybody experienced within their organizations a challenge to that philosophy where they're starting to expect results out of it? Now that we've been working in the space for some time, and every time we introduce a new bit of technology, they're saying, all right, well, you said that last thing was the thing that was going to do the thing. Now that you're saying you need this new thing. Anyone have any examples of hitting any, without trashing your boss?
Everything is tied to a business value. You're getting money, I need something in return.
Right.
We say that a lot is, we're going to get more efficient this way, but it's going to cost X amount. And a lot of our leadership was, so does that mean my program's going to cost less? Like, no, it's going to be the same cost, but you'll just do a better job. So that's kind of hard to, get buy-in from there. But a lot of our stuff, like proof of concept, is we do promote failure because this is all new space, and especially with us, our first two questions is cybersecurity and safety. It's like, all right, so and we don't have the luxury of the industry to just adopt things, and so we're just taking it in. I have a whole little warehouse in my office of misfit toys of things that just didn't work. So many headsets. But yeah, that's all part of the exploration. That's part of the innovation. And a lot of the times is the value you get is what you learn from that failure and how to improve your value streams to actually gain the efficiencies, because a lot of these technologies, they're just the end point. It's really just the assembly line of that data, the workforce, and the process to improve the overall experience.
Yeah, I do have a slightly different perspective on this based on how our pilots have gone. And that is, we didn't completely focus on the user. The user experience within the application was amazing. Everybody loved that. But everything else around it is why a lot of our pilots failed. For example, just getting the device working on the computer, on the company network, making sure the device is always charged when the user needs it, and making sure that the user wears the device the correct way in the first place. Because I've seen some people wear the HoloLens in such a way that all the weight is on their nose, while the visor shouldn't even be touching your face. So all these minor things add a lot of friction. And what we've seen is, if everything isn't perfect, then all our users, they end up going back to what they were already doing instead of dealing with all this mess. Yeah. So I would almost say focus on all these external factors first and smooth out the whole process before even building an XR application to enhance the process.
Yeah, and I think there's a challenge industry-wide is that the technology advances so quickly that the headset that you used at the beginning of your POC may not be the same that's even commercially available. And typically, you're having to use things that aren't engineered specifically for your use case because there's just no cost-effective way to do that specifically for each individual use case right now. So it's not like general compute where you can tailor your PC specifically to your individual need. And so I think we're in that kind of bubble. Jeff, I'm going to start with you. Jeffrey, I'm going to start with you on the next question. But tailing off this current one here, things that have progressed past the proof of concept are things like remote assistant. Now we're seeing AI-driven assistance, removing the remote portion of it and having just an assistant on device. Training is another area that most organizations are either using now actively or are researching a way to implement new training technologies through XR and AI. Any examples that you see will be that next iteration of that? What comes past those that we already know? I think everybody in here has done to death remote assistant training, but where do we go after that in your mind?
So I'm not the person for this question because there are Southwest training people here. Innovation does everything that's not training related because we have an entire team for that. But one of the things that I did work on was something for flight attendants, which was Southwest obviously is known as a high technology company, right? That's definitely not what we are. We're low tech. We're people. We're trying to help people get to where they need to go and just do it with hospitality and customer service. So we try to not have a bunch of big headsets on people and tethers and things as they're moving around. But the flight attendant manual was created in the 1940s, joking. And it's this stack of memos and overrides, and here's the thing that has changed now that you have to keep in mind. And so it's this giant thing that they have to keep around with them. Now it's a digital document, but accessing the information in it is very difficult. And so I was playing around, like 3 years ago, one of my R&D proof of concept, here, play with this until we've got something big that we need you on, was how do I let a flight attendant access this information in a usable format quickly? Because when they need an answer, it's because something is happening. I've got a child that's fussing and a parent that's trying to deal with them, and I need to get what the rule is around the child seat thing, and I'm saying child seat, nothing's coming up, because it's child restraint harness that they needed to search for, stuff like that. And so I started playing around with dialogue flow and different ways of trying to get that information. That's when I discovered GPT-2. And my result was, this thing is amazing. It sounds real. It's completely wrong, but oh my gosh, it's spitting stuff back very authoritatively. Yeah. But anyway, and so now we call it hallucination. We didn't at the time, and that's what it is. And we're getting to that point now where we can use our information. But what's my other problem? I'm on a plane 30,000 feet in the air, and the Wi-Fi just went down. And they expect to be able to use this. Onboard LLMs, though, now I can have an on-device thing that I can count on whether Wi-Fi is active or not. So that's my next secret trick that I'm going to do, and I want to be able to put in their hands to get them to trust the device and know it's going to be there for me no matter what. I don't have to fiddle around with it or something. It's not just like, some piece of garbage. Yeah. I want them to be able to count on it.
So onboard LLMs, but remembering the age-old days of GPT-2 back in, 2023?
Yes, I mean, yes.
But onboard LLMs, and that's a good way to kind of jump into this, is, obviously as we're progressing towards those next use cases, we're going to be seeing much more integration of AI into these, direct XR use cases or just general AI utilization. How important is it for you to have the ability to do this on a device itself without it connecting to a cloud, the cloud, or a public LLM? Is it okay to have it be your own cloud-based internal LLM, or does it have to be fully offline for most of the use cases you guys are seeing?
Ours is all offline.
All offline?
Yep. We do a lot of classified and controller user information. Actually, when the whole ChatGPT and the craze that kicked off, we had a lot of stop. We basically had to block it from our networks because people didn't realize you're putting company information into the public arena. So we took a very strategic pause, assessed it, see what we could actually accomplish on-prem. And the other thing is sanitizing our data and starting to structure our data, because if you just put bad data in, you're just going to get bad answers back. So we've been very conscious and deliberate about how we're going to use AI in some of our spaces. Because right now, a lot of the thing is it's just a really fancy search engine. So we really want it to be informative, especially when we're talking technical information besides how do I write a performance review and sound smart.
So within the context of that, we do have some public LLMs that are getting amazingly powerful within key structures. When you're engineering these tools for your own work, are you at a disadvantage when you're only giving it that subset of information and not allowing it to grab from that public crowdsource? I mean, obviously it comes with less sanitization of that data, but a hell of a lot more, right? So how do you balance that? Ryan, you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of what you're trying to do and how much basically public-facing data is there on that, and how good is kind of the public library of data compared to any data you have. So, I mean, the one thing that's kind of The most applicable to Delta maintenance and is the least kind of public-facing is our logbook data. So logbook write-ups are one of the primary ways damage or other issues with our aircraft are written up and documented. And so we've trained our own customized LLM on that data, which behaves very differently than open models. But I mean, I've also been surprised how well even the public models do on some very kind of niche maintenance information. So I think either way you have to be careful kind of how you govern the use and make sure it's safe and use it for things like prioritization and troubleshooting like we're doing today. So where should I start looking at this aircraft rather than something more prescriptive, do this medicine to this aircraft. But that's kind of how I think about the trade-offs. But I will say the public models are getting better and better even at the kind of more niche subject matter.
And from, we've got 3 of you here from aircraft or aircraft tangential organizations, right? What level of sharing do you think your organizations would allow to contribute to that collective knowledge? Like when you talk about the things that happen with your planes, like would you be willing to share it with the FAA so that way you could share it with Grumman or with Southwest or with any of your other competitors, potentially to increase airline safety? Like where do you draw those lines? What about you, Kenney? Like, do you guys, since you guys work in that government space, do you end up providing a lot of that data back so that way everyone can enjoy some of that? Or get
so we have some consortiums going on with the DoD on how do we share data better, how do we structure it better, because we're starting to get more understanding of how the purpose of the data, especially when you're talking machine learning, you're talking AI, is just like we're understanding a lot of our resource information, it's just really bad, or it's just incomplete, or especially maintenance data. I will tell you, after a maintainer's been on a 10 to 12 hour shift, all he's going to write is airplane broke, fixed airplane. Close out that ticket. So not very insightful. So we have a lot of things tied to aircraft one. So we have to do a lot of adjudication of that information. We're definitely in a state of trust but verify. But we definitely have opened the door more is how do we co-locate within an environment to share that data with the customer and the OEM? But also we are starting to talk with our suppliers, especially our strategic ones, is we're all working towards the same goal. How do we accelerate in some of the, in that domain space while not disrupting IP or data rights? So data rights is always an interesting conversation, and I stay out of that because that's a legality.
So I mean, it brings up one of the most important questions here around security. And I think we've danced around a little bit from the privacy and security aspects associated with this. Obviously, everything you feed into an AI, potentially puts your company at risk if it's going public. And then if you look at XR devices, it is basically just a sensor-filled piece of technology. There's cameras, there's microphones. There's so many ways for it to actually capture information and then store that information. So how do you potentially even protect your organization associated with those risks? And how do you convince other folks within the organization that, no, it's going to be okay? Doug, you have any thoughts on that? I mean, so, yeah, Doug, I'm sorry. Doug.
I think you always have to take security really seriously, and I think at this point in time in technology, it's more important than it ever has been before because of all the things that you just described. We've all heard the security by design mantra when it comes to building solutions. You need to know what are the tools that you're using to putting together a solution, and what harm could those do from a confidentiality standpoint, safety standpoint, to really understand how to build something securely. And that needs to be part of the process. There's AI agents that have agency. Like AI is helping everyone summarize text and write text, but the technology can make decisions and take actions now. So what are the guardrails that you're putting around it, and what are the weak points of your solution, and what are the things you really need to focus on and protect when you're putting things together? These are the questions that you have to think about when it comes to this technology.
I do have an anecdote here when it comes to privacy and the data that these devices are collecting. So a few years ago, we had created an augmented reality tour of one of our offices. And we get a lot of visitors to our offices, internal, external, also students from nearby universities. And one of these visitors, while on the tour wearing the HoloLens 2, they decided to take a detour and go to the restroom, not knowing that the HoloLens 2, it is spatially aware and it sees everything that you see. But we were able to stop them, luckily. But some things like this will get worse once we have AR glasses. So I think we should.
Very different definition of a hot mic, I guess, right? So, yes.
Yeah, I think it is our duty, essentially, to educate people in terms of what they're getting into. And we might have to start putting up signs outside restrooms saying, turn your AR glasses off or something.
Yeah.
It reminded me of something we just did. We built this bag sizer with a single camera to identify the volume of a bag and know whether it fits. And it was a really kind of neat little technology execution. And one of the things we did for debugging was making sure we take photographs of the stuff so we can make sure, oh, okay, yeah, that looks right. Well, people's kids kept jumping on top of it. And so we're photographing kids, which we can't do in a public airport. And so we had to very quickly shut it down, and half a day later we had it where it was automatically detecting faces and blurring all of that stuff before it would save the information. So yeah, yes.
A lot of these same capabilities we have in our pockets today. I think the difference is that's really going to cause a behavioral change. We need to think about how having it on your face when you're walking around changes the dynamic of our social engagements. But like I said, you can record with your phone, you can put it in your pocket and be taking a video. A lot of it has to do with just us figuring out how to leverage these technologies in different ways to ensure that we're all okay with this stuff going forward.
Yeah, so you're wearing the Ray-Ban glasses, right?
I am.
Yeah, so they're becoming commonplace, especially you walk around here, every third person's wearing them right now, right? So within a space like this, it's extremely comfortable, but as we go into general public, there is that awareness. But as you bring it into your office, is there concern? All right, well, if I'm using this to utilize the AI and it turns the camera on, and I happen to be in one of our research rooms and it's a secret formula, for the next wonder drug. Is that something potentially putting, organizational secrets at risk? And do you have to explain that to somebody and say, well, it's not really a challenge there because of X? How do you get around those conversations when you're trying to implement these technologies within your space?
Yeah.
I don't know. When we have no more than 0-day incident on Teams, then we'll. A lot of people forget that they're on video sometimes, so especially get very natural about it. Especially with some of our closed areas, people forget that my key and my Fitbit and everything else with technology on you or your smartwatch. You're coming into an area that's secure, and that's the same with your data. You got to make sure it's secure. So you just got to keep it on the forefront and just have situational awareness. But in the same sense as we see this everyday practice and people do silly things all the time. So you just have to be mindful of that because you can only dummy proof so much in those areas. Especially with us when we were first time streaming within a classified area. Man, it was so much red tape to actually accomplish that. And we could never take the cable out of the HoloLens. And we're like, but how do we power it if I can't take the cable out? So that took a couple more months to work through that. So.
And there's so many of these challenges that we're seeing AI solve in real time for very specific things that we thought were going to take us much, much longer. And I want to ask a question to you, Rajat, because you're on the development side and you're actually creating a lot of XR projects. Looking at new tools like Google's Genie 3, like the world model tool, where we were talking about a couple of years ago, it's going to help you in XR because it's going to allow you to program faster or create 3D models without having an experienced modeler or create visual design and concept designs. Now you leapfrog all of that with a single entity So are we thinking too small in the development space, or are we just waiting for the world to catch up to where the AIs are going to beat us to? Like, what is your experience within that, and like, how do you stay ahead of that curve, and how do you continuously educate yourself and your organization while you're developing this?
Yeah. So Genie 3 specifically, when I saw it, I remembered this Google blog post I think I'd read a few years ago, where they were talking about how video games in the past were pretty static, where you'd go to a store, you'd purchase a video game, and that's what you got. And then nowadays, we have these live service games where you get a video game, and then a few months later, the developers add more content to it. But in the future, they said, with AI, this was a few years ago, we'd have living games, essentially, where you can user-generate personalized content on the fly. And I think we are getting closer to that with techniques and tools like Genie 3. But the thing is, it's still quite far away, I'd say, because Genie 3, it only generates 720p video for a few minutes right now, and I think at just 24 frames per second. You cannot have a VR application running at 24 frames per second. But given how quickly it's advanced,
I've seen quite a few, unfortunately.
Yeah,
yes.
yeah. Given how quickly it's advanced over the past year, and if we continue seeing this rate of advancement, I'd say, yeah, things are going to fundamentally change in terms of how we create 3D applications, and I think that could be a really exciting future, especially for enterprise, where you can then on the fly create like customized training applications based on who the user is and what they're struggling with. So yeah, we'll have to keep an eye out and see how these world models go, but there's a lot of potential if they take off.
These models excite me because we're seeing a boom in robotics in construction, and a lot of these companies are training their robotics with our job sites, which makes sense. But if you can create a scenario that you don't run into all the time and train the robotics in a virtual scenario, now you might be able to exponentially like accelerate that development. So I've seen a little bit of that where they're trying to sort of get past, you know, the initial sort of, not muscle memory, but you know, like the initial training before a robot tries to do something out in the field. So that could be really helpful for us.
So we're surprisingly getting closer to the end here. I want to give each one of you an opportunity to answer this last question before we jump into a little bit of a lightning round. We're going to get some hot takes from you guys. But Ryan, fast forward 10 years. AI and XR are everywhere. What is the thing in your mind? What's a bold prediction you think you can make confidently right now? Is this ubiquitous technology? Is this something that that is still trying to take off? Where do you see it?
Yeah, I think it will be able to, hopefully aspirationally, eliminate a lot of the difficulty of kind of knowledge questions, or even into some skills questions, and like the heavy research that goes into so many of our jobs today, and just eliminate that.
What about you, Josh?
The big thing that always comes to mind when I think about the future of AI is that it's not going to be as exciting. It's actually going to get boring. I do think it's going to be sort of everywhere, and it's going to be everywhere in the sense that, like, we think about the internet. We don't activate the internet and get on. We just sort of do it. And I think we'll get to a point where, you know, and this started a while ago, like AI's kind of in a lot of things already, but we're going to get to a point where that value is so tangible that you wouldn't go through your workday without it. But at the same time, when you sort of think about it, you're like, okay, well, that's just here. It's just like electricity. I plug into the wall. It's like, oh, I talk to my AI. Like, I think it's going to sort of get to that level where we're beyond the hype, and it's not weird necessarily. And the way I describe that is it gets boring. And I've seen little glimpses of that where we were doing remote missions with a robot, and just like, you know, it's doing what it's supposed to do, and there's nothing dramatic happening. We're just sort of going, oh, look, it's boring. Like, okay, well, it's boring when it works. Yeah. It's an interesting insight.
That's a good thing, right?
Yeah.
Boring is good at times.
Yeah.
Doug?
Yeah, so 10 years out, that's an interesting question. ChatGPT is going to be turning, what, 3 in November? So imagine what the world was like just 3 years ago. So to think about what the world's going to be like in 10 years, I don't know. I don't think anyone really does. But ultimately, like I'm with you, Josh. I think
That's why I went so broad.
Yeah, it's a good answer. I think it's just like anything else, everything else that we've had, these major technological changes. Like, does anybody think about how you can buy, something online today, and compare that to the old way, and get nostalgic about that? Maybe every once in a while, but it's just going to blend into life like everything else. I think we're still going to have excitement because humanity has been innovating since the wheel. So there's going to be other challenges that we're going to face in the future and try to solve for. The things that we complain about today, we're not going to even think about, but we'll have other things to complain about.
So Kenney, within the context of that, if we're progressing to this point where things become boring, and we've gotten to that spot where the AI and XR is just so commonplace, what do you think the things that are going to be going away? Like, what's a example of something you feel like we just won't be doing? Will we not be going to stores at all anymore? Will we not be interacting face to face? Will we have virtual friends? What's the
I don't think it's going to be completely, autonomy, because at some point you're going to lose the human touch, the creativity side of it if you're too dependent on the technology. You see a lot of that as people still want to paint, they still want to beat with their hands. It's just going to be two different factions. I mean, I still have a massive record collection, even though everything's digital. It's just that touch and feel of it. So I don't think it's going to completely go away. I think the need from the public consumption is going to drive other technologies because we're going to hit that wall. So there's going to be higher fidelity internet or some other type because you're going to want higher throughput. The computing and storage is going to totally change paradigm just because the demand is not going to, it's going to exceed the supply. And then the fact that we see it now, a lot of brick and mortar, they're going away. But it's going to force evolution. It's going to change the market. So you really have to adapt to that, but you're still going to have your truest to the way things are. I see it with my kids now. Sometimes we do those AI-generated graphics or whatever, and we think it's cute because it's fun. And they're like, oh, no, we don't like it. I was like, oh, I thought you were all totally into AI. And they're like, so you kind of see different points of view. I think the other thing is trust. We're seeing it now. A lot of the AR or the AI-created content is going to cause mistrust. So there's definitely something we have to think about that. So it's just being cautious. Be cautious about that.
Yeah, every day I see something and I'm like, we're totally cooked. Like, there's no way you could determine what's real and what's not in a lot of these scenarios already.
I was totally bought into dogs doing high diving. I was like, man, that is amazing, until I was like, oh, this is all BS.
Rajat, any big predictions from you?
Well, 10 years from now, we might end up being in the Matrix serving our AI overlords. But hopefully that doesn't happen. If it doesn't, I think contextual AI will take off, combined with BCI devices. And we're already seeing early signs of this with the neural wristband that Meta showed off, because it taps into your nerves to kind of figure out what you're doing. And essentially, your nerves are connected to your brain. And contextual AI, which they also showed, is where the AI recognizes where you are, what you're trying to do, and it only shows you the interaction options that are relevant. That way, you have less interactions. There's this saying in UX where I think it goes like the best UI is no UI. And I think we'll probably head towards something like that, where the AI that you have with you will kind of read your mind, essentially, to figure out what you're trying to do. And yeah, I think it'll be an exciting future. All of us will be wearing AR glasses, hopefully.
That was Kenny's AI calling him. Let him know he's pissed at the answer. So, Jeffrey.
Well, I have been hearing people say things like, we're not going to have cell phones in 10 years because our glasses are going to be the screen that we need, and everything else we can interact with it. So that's one thing. I don't think hyper content is going to really take over, where I'm watching the Jeffrey show and you're watching the Rajat show and so on, just because we need to have shared experiences. Hey, did you check out K-pop Demon Hunters 27? Oh my gosh, right? Could you believe? You know, it's like we have to have that kind of connectivity. So I don't think it's going to go too extreme where everybody is on an individual thing, although I am playing around with the Blockade Labs and trying to do customized stuff by destination for specific people. So anyway. Yeah.
Well, with the last just few minutes here, I'm going to go through quick hits. I just want you to give me a very quick answer. We're going to go straight down the line. More risks or more benefits to artificial intelligence?
More benefits.
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 Skynet.
That's a risk. Okay.
You're in defense.
Yeah. He's in the right space to be working on that. So, I don't know, so.
I think we'll merge with AI eventually, so benefits.
Oh, okay.
Benefits.
Benefits. All right. So, how many years from now until you trust AI completely to do a critical job? How many years from now?
2.
Oh, we have some really important stuff. I don't know, I would say 3 to 5.
Trust AI completely to do a critical job?
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Never.
Okay.
That's almost there.
Yeah, I think we're always going to have the human in the loop. There's got to be a cancel operation button. So, but we are getting better about it. But they're still, they only know what they know. And to the point they actually can express something beyond what they've been fed, we're not going to completely trust it. So.
He didn't specify unsupervised.
Right.
Yeah. Rajat?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with not in our lifetime. Yeah, we definitely need a human in the loop, because you need to blame somebody when things go wrong, and you gotta blame the AI.
Jeffrey?
So Robert Heinlein did a short story where he talked about the robotic pilots for rocket ships, but you always had to have a human there, just because people felt more comfortable that a human was there, even though they had nothing to do and couldn't actually react fast enough to it. I think that's probably where we're going to be.
So as we progress and people are already using chatbots to be, to be less lonely, it's helping the elderly, it's helping in a lot of these situations. Will you ever consider an AI a friend, or will it always be software to you?
I guess I'm open to being friends with AI.
All right.
I feel like the lines are blurred, but it's always going to be software. Like it's not going to take I don't see it taking the place of an actual person.
Okay.
I don't know exactly how it feels, but I think it's my friend already.
It sure knows a lot about me. Let's put it that way.
Talk a lot.
It's still software, but I do prompt politely to it. You know?
How many of you in this room say please and thank you to ChatGPT?
Just in case.
Yes, just in case,
Just in
right?
case.
So, Rajat?
Yeah, I want to say software, but it's being recorded, and our AGI will have access to it eventually, so I'll go with friend.
There you go.
A few years ago, I had the idea that software would eventually help retrain us, where I could say, I've got anxiety problems, and it would refocus things and help me, not in a way that I would be thinking, oh, it's doing this on purpose. It's just it naturally would in the course of me asking it about my calendar and managing my own stuff. So I'm kind of looking forward to that, being optimized by my own software.
Yeah. And I think within the context of the last question here and within this, I think it's been far enough since Blade Runner 2049, whatever it was, came out. And Ryan Gosling's character was a replicant, like basically a robot. And he had a XR AI-powered girlfriend. So it was a machine having a relationship with machines. How far away are we from having that world where our machines are communicating without us being involved? That they're just talking, coming up with their own plans, and having their own lives, no humans included.
Well, I think there's been adversarial kind of training and networks for decades already. So in a way, I think we're already there. But in the kind of context you're thinking, I'll say maybe 10 years.
I'll just say I hope it's longer.
Yeah.
Or it
Was that when
happen.
they start to plot against us, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, there could be a lot of good things there, but Yeah, I could go sideways real quick, maybe.
I think that's already been a thing. I think a research team put together AI agents, and I think they ran it in like a Minecraft world, and they built a city and elected a mayor, and yeah, so that's possible today.
Say elected a mayor?
I'm pretty sure, yeah.
I got to look into that.
Yeah, I gotta look into that.
Check it out. AI it.
I got no answer for this one.
We already have AI agents that are talking to each other. Like you can have a product manager agent talking to a software architect agent, and they're kind of working together to come up with project documentation that eventually goes to a software engineering agent that creates the code. So I'd say they are already doing it. They're already speaking to each other in a way.
And my instant answer was 6 months because of AI agents, that we're going to get to the point where it'll just take care of itself with another, without any human interaction.
6 months. 6 months to 10 years to hopefully never. Well, thank you, gentlemen, for the time here today. Thank you, everyone here.
Thank you.
Obviously, we're just scratching the surface of this stuff. There is so much more to talk about. So very last question, happy hour, everyone going to that? So people can find folks over there. So please come find the folks on this panel here, talk their ear off. They are the experts in this field. They are absolutely brilliant in this space, and take advantage of it while you can. Thank you all.